Okay, this one, section 4, is simply entitled More Equations. However, it deals with one of my favorite concepts. We're going to use this thought process in a minute of square root of x times square root of x. We could think of that as square root of x squared, which is x. Or you just know the square root of a number times the square root of a number is the number. So we're going to use that thought process in a little bit, and we're going to create our own numbers. So we're going to start with a simple one. I don't know why they start out, just to get us thinking of what we're doing. Example 1 just says solve this. Well, x plus 3 squared. You know that when you have a plus b squared, you have a squared plus 2ab. Remember, we'll just do this real quick because I do have some students that still ask about this. You can go ahead and do it out the long way. But you can remember a plus b squared is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. We get that because there's our x squared. Then we're going to have 3x, and we're going to have another 3x. That's our 2ab to give us 6x. And then we have our b times our b, so our b squared. So we end up with this amount here. Then here we're going to factor this. Now I did just grade the chapter 6 tests, and I noticed some people forgetting a random negative that was outside of brackets or parentheses. This is a negative 2 times everything inside. Don't forget that. So we have a negative 2x minus 6 minus 8 equals 0. So now I just start combining, and there's my x squared. Well, then I have positive 6x minus negative 2x. So I have plus 4x. Then I have 9 minus 6 is 3, minus 5 is negative 5. And I'm just going to solve this. It said solve. So all I have to do is solve for x. It's already set equal to 0. So I need a negative 5, so I need opposing signs, and I need 4 left over. So I will use a positive 5 and a negative 1 because the difference is positive 4. And I have just solved x equals negative 5 and x equals 1. That's the simple one. They just start us off, say, hey, let's go through the paces, remember how to set everything up, combine like terms, and then solve at the end by setting equal to 0 and factoring. Okay, so we got that done. Now, let's go to the fun stuff. I like this. Once it clicks, you will get it and you will love it. We have solve 4x to the 4th plus 7x squared equals 2. So first off, what I am going to do, hopefully I don't run out of room, I'm going to move it over here. I have my 4x to the 4th. It says solve. I need to set equal to 0. It's equal to 2. I want a quadratic equation. So I am going to keep all my numbers together. I have 4x to the 4th, 7x squared, minus 2. I'm just moving the 2 over, equals 0. That's what I'm going to use. Now, some people will say, oh, 4x to the 4th, so I'm going to use 2x squared and work on that, which that's fine and dandy, but what we can do is say, you know that x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. Now what I'm going to do is take my x to the 4th and say, I know that that is a perfect square. X squared times x squared. I can make that v. If I square v, well, you'll see what I'm talking about. I should have written this differently. X squared times x squared. I'll go down here. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th, which you know is a perfect square. If I make v x squared, now it's underneath here, it'll look better, then I know if I square v, then that's the same thing as squaring x squared. here's the key concept, which is why I was going to put it up here, but I think it makes more sense down here. I just made a variable. I made a new variable. V equals x squared. If I square v, what I'm essentially doing is squaring x squared, which gives me x to the fourth. So v squared is x to the fourth. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to think this route because it cleans things up. You already have this. You can pause it and write it down if you need. I'm going to erase it to make some room. So now what I'm going to say is I have 4v squared plus 7v minus 2 equals 0. V squared, there's my v squared. It equals x to the fourth. V equals x squared. So I've just replaced. Now what I can do is I can take 4v and v, and I have a negative 2. So what happens, I need a positive, I gotta write and not talk. I need a positive 7 remaining, and I need a negative 2 multiplied together. So if I put them like this, I have a positive 8v minus 7v is positive 7v, and I'm left with negative 2 in the end. So I solve these, and you might know you just move this over and change it, but I'll do it the long way real quick. We add our 1, 4v equals 1, divide v equals 1/4. And then here, v equals negative 2. There's my two possible v values. V equals 1/4, v equals negative 2. Now, here comes the tricky part. I think this is fun, I enjoy doing it, but there is a tricky part to it. I'll leave room. My v equals 1/4 right here. Well, now I replace, and I say, okay, v is x squared. My v is actually x squared. So in fact, x squared equals 1/4. So now I need to take the square root of each side. When I do that, I get my x plus or minus. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 4 is 2. I have two possible x values for that 1. Then my other, and I already erased everything. I shouldn't have, I think it was 2, was it not? Negative 2. Negative 2. So that means my x squared actually equals negative 2. So I do the same thing here. Square root, square root. So I have x equals plus or minus square root of negative 2. That means x equals plus or minus I square root of 2. I have 4. I had a degree of 4 for my exponent. I have 4 possible solutions. X equals plus or minus 1/2. X equals plus or minus I square root of 2. Okay, hopefully you're enjoying that. I think this is pretty cool stuff. We're going to do one more. Yeah, one more, because the other example that I work in class is a long story problem. I don't have time for that on here. Nope, I won't have time. So, example 3. Solve for x. I'll write this one out. Solve for x when we have x plus square root of x minus 6 equals 0. Okay. The route I'm going to go is, you remember that first one that I worked, well, the second example 2 that I worked, we were dealing with an x to the fourth and an x squared. We looked at that x squared and said, hey, I can make, if I square that, then I get x to the fourth. So you're thinking this middle term, how can I make that equal the first term in terms of? That's a lot of terms. So square root of x. What happens if I take the square root of x and I square it? I have the square root of x times the square root of x, or I have the square root of x squared, however you want to look at it, or a square root with a squared, they go away. But either way, no matter how I look at this, how I think about it, if I square the square root of x, I get x. That's what I have here. That's what I need. So x is actually a perfect square when I think of it in terms of square root. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is make this x in terms of square root. I don't have to mess with this one like I did the other one. But what I'm going to do is say, I'll put it in parentheses, square root of x squared. Remember, square root of x squared, blah, 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 is x. So I've replaced x with square root of x squared. Plus square root of x minus 6 equals 0. Now we have to look at this and say, okay, square root of x squared, that would be square root of x times square root of x. I need multiplied together negative 6 with a positive 1 in between. So I get that. So I have just factored this out using a square root. Remember, I have a negative 2 square root of x plus 3 square root of x, that's 1 square root of x. Positive 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So I have my well, I'll write it here. Square root of x equals negative 3. Square root of x equals 2. Those are my solutions. So again, I'll go up here. Leave room. Square root of x is negative 3. So I need to square both of them. When I square square root of x, I get x. When I square negative 3, I get 9. My other one was square root of x equals 2. Well, when I square these, then I get square root of x times square root of x is x. 2 times 2 is 4. And I believe that was all I wanted to do. Yep. Example 4 I'll explain in a minute. So this was a little easier than the other one. We didn't have 4 options, we had 2, because what we're doing is squaring a number. If you square a negative, it becomes a positive. The difference in the earlier one is if we're talking about a square root. The earlier one, we had an x squared, we took the square root of it. So we had to say plus or minus. Here, we're simply squaring a number. Anytime you square a number, you get a positive. Example 4, they hit us with a great big long story problem, similar to something you'll see in a science class. And you have to find the time it takes for an object to hit the ground. Well, the only way to do this, they set it up in a quadratic formula, 16t squared minus 12t minus h. You've got time, you've got height. Well, you're going to end up solving that and getting a positive or a negative answer. It doesn't take negative time for an object to fall. Yeah, to hit the ground. So it doesn't take a negative time for it to fall. So you choose the positive. I used to hate those when I was in math class or science classes because I think it was physics. I didn't like solving for something and just saying that one doesn't work, I'm using this one. But that's what you have to do. You solve, you get 2 answers, you know it's only the positive. Okay, so that was 7-4, more equations. I hope you enjoyed it. I sure did.